Joel Michael Guy Jr. entered the world on a warm Sunday in March 1988, the only child born to Joel Michael Guy Sr. and Lisa Janine Madeira Guy. His father had grown up among the welders and pipefitters of Terrebonne Parish, Louisiana, and by the time his son arrived had worked his way into a solid career as a pipeline engineering designer. His mother, raised in a bustling Catholic household in neighboring St. Charles Parish, managed human resources paperwork with the same quiet diligence she brought to family life. Each parent carried the baggage of a former marriage. Joel Sr. had 3 daughters, Michelle, Shandiz and Angela, who, though they did not share Joel Jr.'s DNA, would orbit his life like distant moons, shaping it in ways they would never have guessed. Lisa's devotion to her only biological child bordered on the absolute. She chronicled his milestones in scrapbooks, ferried him to science fairs, and filled the Knoxville split level they bought in 1997 with the hum of encouragement. Teachers saw a boy who devoured textbooks yet flinched from playground shouts, who corrected classmates but seldom asked them to join him for lunch. By 5th grade he preferred dismantling small appliances to neighborhood games, confident that a mother-funded replacement would appear if a motor or switch went missing. When he reached high school age, that dazzling intellect earned him admission to the Louisiana School for Math, Science and the Arts. The residential magnet campus, set in the red brick quiet of Natchitoches, gave him laboratories, libraries and solitude in equal measure. Dorm advisors later remembered a polite, muscular teenager who jogged alone at dawn, skipped prom and posted protein counts on his door. Lisa clocked 8-hour drives twice a month to deliver care packages and tuck cash into his dresser drawers. The pattern, Joel Jr.'s need, Lisa's rescue, was setting like plaster. In 2006 he left for the pre-med program at George Washington University in Washington, D.C. The city overwhelmed him. By Thanksgiving he had withdrawn, telling his parents the capital was all politics, not science. The following spring he enrolled at Louisiana State University, a move that began a decade-long drift no advisor could interrupt. Majors came and went. Biology, kinesiology, even a fanciful plan to prepare for plastic surgery residencies, though LSU had no such track. He rented one cramped apartment after another, changed roommates with the seasons, and collected fewer than 60 credit hours in 10 years. Enough for sophomore standing but not a degree. Friends were scarce. His social circle shrank to online bodybuilding forums and the occasional classmate roped into spotting his bench press. Money never ran out. Lisa wired $1,000 each month for rent and groceries, upped the transfer when utility companies threatened to cut power, and renewed his health insurance policy each year. Joel Sr. grumbled that they were enabling a dependency, but Lisa countered that her son was destined for greatness once he found the right niche. She clipped articles on late-blooming geniuses, holding them up like lanterns against her husband's doubts. By early 2016 the parents were weary. Joel Sr. had spent decades drafting pipeline schematics. Lisa's own retirement eligibility at the accounts payable desk was in sight. They bought an 87-acre spread in rural Seguinsville, Tennessee, envisioning vegetable gardens, quiet porches and grandchildren crashing on weekends. Over the phone they confided to their daughters that financial help for Joel Jr. would stop after Christmas. He was 28. It was time, they said, for him to stand on his own. Whether they ever delivered that verdict to their son outright remains uncertain. Investigators would later theorize that he heard just enough, snippets of conversation, half-heard whispers, to feel the earth shift beneath him. Whatever the source, by the first week of November he had decided that if the lifeline was cut, he would seize it for himself in the most final way imaginable. On the evening of November 7th he strode into an Ace Hardware store near Napoleonville, Louisiana. Security footage captured him selecting gallon jugs of muriatic acid and packets of caustic lye, paying in cash and slipping out without a word. In the days that followed he visited Walmarts and Home Depots across 3 parishes, always choosing self-checkout lanes and cash payments. His purchases formed a macabre shopping list: hydrogen peroxide, a bleach sprayer, 2 enormous blue Rubbermaid totes, a Buck 119 combat knife, a 15-pound sledgehammer, digital timers designed for reptile heat lamps, nitrile gloves, and enough drain cleaner to open a small plumbing business. Back in Baton Rouge he sat at a cluttered kitchen table and opened a green marbled spiral notebook. On its first page he wrote an inventory of what he stood to gain. the Knoxville house, the Seguinsville land, his mother's $500,000 life insurance policy, bank accounts, vehicles, everything all mine. The pages that followed read like stage directions for a horror film. Kill dad first, faster kill, cut carotid, kill mom next, she trusts absence, dismember, liquefy in acid bath, raise thermostat to speed decomp, burn house down on timer, drive home, stitches at clinic, collect money. In tidy block letters he mapped routes, timed each step, and even penciled a shopping reminder: get bags for groceries. Under a corner coffee stain he added a date. Move February 17, 17, no mortgage. The plan was as cold as any corporate business model, only the dividends would be soaked in blood. Thanksgiving arrived with unseasonably mild weather in Knoxville. Joel Jr. pulled into his parents' driveway Wednesday night, parking his silver Hyundai inside the garage. He claimed he feared hail damage. He lugged in a black duffel, a weightlifting belt, and oddly an empty Rubbermaid bin. The holiday itself passed in practiced warmth. Lisa filled deviled egg platters, daughters wrangled toddlers, and at her insistence everyone assembled on the front porch for a family photograph. In the picture Joel Jr. stands rigid at the center, his smile thin, his eyes somewhere behind the camera. Friday was spent ferrying a fishing boat to the Seguinsville property, testing county roads for trailer clearance. Lisa packed turkey sandwiches, but her son declined and instead wolfed down protein bars, thumbs flicking across his phone. That evening he surprised his nephew by handing over a sack of old action figures. His sisters were startled. He had never surrendered personal possessions before. Saturday, November 26th, dawned gray and still. Lisa rose early, jotted a small grocery list: bacon, ice cream, sausage, and drove to Walmart at 12:13 p.m., swiping her debit card at the self-checkout 13 minutes later. Joel Sr. stayed home to tinker in the upstairs exercise room. Between 12:20 and 12:40, according to the later reconstruction, Joel Jr. climbed the stairs carrying the buck knife. The attack that followed could only be described as frenzied. 42 stab wounds slashed through muscle, lung, and neck. Blood fanned across mirrors, spattered the Bowflex, and pooled on the hardwood before gravity pulled it through ceiling joists into the foyer below. Lisa returned at 12:54. She pushed the front door open, arms laden with grocery bags, called a cheerful, "Honey, I'm back," and was met by a blur of steel. Defensive cuts scored her forearms as she fought to protect her face. 31 stab wounds pierced her torso. 9 ribs cracked under the force of knee pressure. Groceries tumbled, sausage links rolled across the rug, and silence settled over Golden View Lane. Joel Jr. moved with clinical focus. He dialed the thermostat up to 90 degrees, ensuring bacteria and chemical reactions would accelerate decay. He hauled the combat knife and sledgehammer downstairs, severed his father's limbs at the joints he knew so well from anatomy texts, and repeated the process on his mother's body. He lowered the torsos into the blue totes, poured in drain cleaner, peroxide, and acid, and rigged aquarium thermostats to keep the stew at 100 degrees. He placed Lisa's severed head in a large stockpot on the stove, filled it with water, and cranked the burner to high flame. When his own hand slipped and the blade bit deep into his palm, he duct-taped the wounds, finished hacking, then found the blood seeping through the improvised bandage. At 3:34 p.m. Walmart surveillance caught him again, this time in the pharmacy aisle buying gauze, antibiotic ointment, dermaplast spray, and fresh nitrile gloves. He favored his right hand, kept his head down, paid cash, and disappeared. Back at the house he arranged digital timers, one linked to a portable space heater, evidently hoping a late-night fire would erase what chemicals could not. For reasons he never explained, he abandoned this final step. Whether exhaustion, pain, or the stench of his handiwork overcame him, he locked the doors, pocketed his mother's Nissan key fob, and drove south before sunrise on Sunday. Along Interstate 59 he withdrew cash from a series of ATMs, generating the precise digital footprint that would later stitch prosecutors' timeline together. Near Baton Rouge he slipped into LSU Student Health Center, told a nurse he'd fallen carrying glass bowls, and accepted 11 sutures without anesthetic. He declined prescription painkillers, saying he had ibuprofen at home. Monday morning dawned and Lisa Guy's desk at the accounts payable office sat empty. Co-workers trading weekend stories noticed immediately. By early afternoon her supervisor dialed the Knox County Sheriff's Office. Deputies Stephen Ballard and Peyton Payne arrived at Golden View Lane to find both family cars parked outside, curtains drawn, and a caustic smell leaking through door seams. Using Lisa's garage remote, they raced the door. A wet heat hit them like a furnace. Bleach, decay, and something metallic curled inside their throats. The hallway beyond revealed two severed hands, bleached nearly white, lying palms up on carpet. Deputy Payne recoiled and steadied himself against a wall. They would later testify that the scene eclipsed anything they had imagined in law enforcement nightmares. Hazmat teams arrived, donned respirators, and documented more than 600 individual blood spatter points in the exercise room, cataloged 14 knives, recovered the green notebook from a clear backpack left on the living room sofa, and photographed the stockpot simmering what forensic pathologists confirmed to be human remains. They also found timers set for 3 a.m. Monday that had failed to trigger. The chemical-laden totes emitted bubbles and a faint electrical hum from their submerged heaters. Within hours, the FBI's Baton Rouge field office began watching Joel Jr.'s Nicholson Drive apartment. On Tuesday, November 29 at 3:42 p.m., he emerged wearing surgical gloves, perhaps to keep stitches dry, headed for his Hyundai, and found himself boxed in by unmarked vehicles. Handcuffed, he offered mild confusion, asked if his parents were all right, then fell silent. Inside the apartment, agents discovered anatomy textbooks flagged at joint disarticulation diagrams, a weightlifting belt stuffed with hardware receipts, and unopened digital timers identical to those in Knoxville. Back in Tennessee, the legal machinery ground forward. Defense attorneys argued that deputies had entered the house without a warrant, but Judge Stephen Sword ruled that the overpowering odor and welfare concern constituted exigent circumstances. Competency evaluations at Riverbend Maximum Security concluded that Joel Jr. was rational, cooperative, and suffused with narcissistic traits but not psychotic. The pandemic delayed trial dates, pushing proceedings to the fall of 2020, when courtroom cameras streamed every grim photograph to a homebound world. Jury selection drew hundreds of citizens who had spent spring lockdowns binging true crime documentaries. 12 jurors and 4 alternates took their seats behind plexiglass, instructed to weigh evidence free of sensationalism that already flooded the internet. Over 4 days, prosecutors marched exhibits before them. The notebook projected floor to ceiling, the Walmart videos inching forward frame by frame, the medical examiner tracing 42 wounds on a 3-dimensional torso model, and the family photograph in which the smiling murderer stood arm in arm with those he would soon butcher. Sisters delivered victim impact testimony that left spectators weeping, one nearly fainting when confronted with autopsy images. The defense proposed a phantom intruder and suggested the notebook was nothing more than grotesque fantasy writing, but they could not explain away the chemical burns on the defendant's clothing or the digital timers or the precise route map found in his own handwriting. After 3 hours, the jury returned its unanimous verdict: guilty of 2 counts of premeditated first-degree murder, 3 counts of felony murder, and 2 counts of abuse of a corpse. Judge Sword imposed 2 consecutive life sentences without parole, plus 4 years, citing cruelty so exceptional that mercy would mock justice. In prison, Joel Jr. penned a letter requesting solitary confinement lest he gouge out a cellmate's eyes for experimental knowledge. Wardens obliged, locking him 23 hours a day in a single cell at the Northwest Correctional Complex. He has no prison job, no chance of parole, and after the Tennessee Court of Criminal Appeals affirmed every conviction in April 2023, almost no legal path forward. The house on Golden View Lane stood empty, its Zillow listing gathering digital dust until the family bulldozed it in 2022. Today, an uneven concrete slab peeks through tufted grass. Neighbors still avoid walking their dogs past the lot after dark. Lisa's sister planted a wooden cross beside the sidewalk, visiting each Thanksgiving with fresh flowers. Joel Sr.'s daughters, now mothers themselves, wrestle with the dual grief of losing parents and a brother in one savage stroke. One wrote in a journal entry filed with the court that year, "The hands that fed him he severed. We are the ones left to stitch together what he chose to shred." Criminologists returned to the Guy murders when teaching parricide, that rare crime in which children annihilate those who gave them life. The case illustrates the lethal power of entitlement that festers unchecked, of dependency allowed to calcify until the prospect of independence feels like extinction. It warns that love, when stripped of boundaries, can mutate into horror, and that a single human being, given motive and meticulous intent, can turn a quiet family home into a scene so monstrous that even seasoned deputies step back to steady their breath.